She wasn't a criminal. She wasn't even a suspect. She was a respected judge, walking home after a long day in court. But to the officers who stopped her, none of that mattered. In their eyes, her skin was enough to turn her into a target. 3 bullets tore through the night, and for a moment, it looked like justice itself had been silenced. But what happened next shocked everyone and turned the courtroom into a battlefield. How did she survive and bring her shooters to their knees? By day, she was a symbol of justice. Judge Elaine Carter had spent years building her reputation in the courtroom, a voice of fairness, sharp reasoning, and quiet strength. To her colleagues, she was unshakable. To her community, she was hope in a system that often failed them. But outside the walls of the courthouse, Elaine lived a life as ordinary as anyone else. She loved her evening walks, the crisp sound of leaves underfoot, the chance to clear her mind after long hours on the bench. On this night, nothing seemed unusual. The city hummed in the background, streetlights casting their glow across familiar sidewalks. She carried no robe, no gavel, just herself, blending into the night like any other passerby. And yet, unknown to her, trouble was already closing in. A patrol car crawled down the street, its headlights cutting across the pavement. Inside, 2 officers watched her, not with recognition, but with suspicion. Elaine didn't notice. Not yet. Her mind was elsewhere, on the cases she'd handled, on the justice she'd tried to uphold. But in a matter of minutes, she would no longer be the one delivering judgment. Instead, she would stand face to face with the kind of danger that no courtroom could shield her from. The patrol car slowed until it matched her pace. The engine's low rumble was impossible to ignore now. Judge Elaine Carter kept her stride steady, refusing to look over, refusing to show the unease that had begun to settle in her chest. She had seen enough cases, heard enough testimonies to know when someone was being watched. Then, the sound, a sharp squeal of brakes. The car cut across the street and stopped in front of her. 2 officers stepped out, their flashlights slicing through the night. "Where are you going?" one barked. Not a greeting, not a question, really, a demand. Elaine froze for a moment, her mind racing. She wasn't in her robe, not behind her bench. To them, she wasn't Judge Carter. She was just another black woman on a dark street. She raised her hands slightly, steadying her breath. "I'm walking home," she said carefully. But her calm words did nothing. The officers closed in, their hands already hovering near their holsters. One of them circled behind her, his flashlight beam lingering on her face as though searching for guilt that didn't exist. Her heart pounded. She wanted to tell them who she was, that she was the very person who upheld the law they swore to serve. But a colder thought pressed in. What if her words only made things worse? What if her title didn't protect her, but provoked them? "Stop moving," the second officer snapped, though she hadn't taken a step. Elaine's pulse hammered in her ears. The sidewalk that had always felt safe now felt like a trap. The hum of traffic in the distance faded. All that existed was the blinding glare of flashlights and the weight of suspicion pressing down on her. She thought of the cases she had overseen, of defendants who swore they had been stopped for nothing more than the color of their skin. She had believed them. But in this moment, belief became experience. One officer reached for his radio, muttering something she couldn't hear. The other's hand gripped his weapon now, the metallic glint catching the light. Elaine's breath caught. She wanted to scream, to remind them she was not their enemy. But her voice felt trapped. She knew too well, one wrong move, one wrong word, and the night could end in silence. The first officer took a step closer. "ID now." Her hands trembled as she reached for her bag, slow, deliberate, praying they wouldn't mistake the motion for something else. She pulled out her wallet, holding it high. "Judge Elaine Carter," she said, her voice firm despite the fear coiled in her chest. But instead of recognition, she saw disbelief and something darker flicker across their faces. Then, in a heartbeat, the quiet night exploded with sound. 3 deafening shots cracked through the air. Her body jolted, the world spinning, her vision blurring as she stumbled backward. For an instant, she didn't know if she was alive or dead. And as the smoke cleared, One haunting thought cut deeper than the bullets ever could. Would justice survive the night? The world tilted, the night collapsing into chaos. Judge Elaine Carter lay on the cold pavement, the burn of pain searing through her body where the bullets had struck. Her breath came in short, ragged gasps. She pressed her hand against her side, feeling the warm flood of blood beneath her fingers. Above her, the officers stood frozen, their guns still raised, smoke curling from the barrels. For a moment, their faces revealed what they'd done. Not the look of men enforcing the law, but the panic of men who had just tried to erase a life. Elaine's vision blurred, but her mind sharpened. She thought of every face she had ever seen in her courtroom. The broken families, the mothers who cried for sons lost too soon, the voices that had begged for justice and left with nothing. Now, she was one of them, a victim in the very system she had fought to protect. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. Every second felt stolen, borrowed against the odds. But even in the haze of agony, one truth anchored her. If she lived, she would not let this end in silence. The officers whispered frantically, arguing over what to do next. They hadn't expected her to survive. They hadn't expected her to still be breathing. And as Elaine struggled to lift her head, her eyes locked on theirs. Weak but unbroken, she forced the words through trembling lips, words that would haunt them far longer than any gunshot. "You shot a judge." The silence that followed was heavier than the night itself. For the first time, it wasn't her life that hung in the balance. It was theirs. Judge Elaine Carter survived that night. The bullets missed her heart, but they left scars deeper than any wound. Days later, she returned to the very place where she held power, the courtroom. Only this time, the eyes on her weren't those of lawyers or juries. They were the eyes of the officers who had tried to silence her. The evidence was undeniable. Body cameras, witnesses, her own survival, all of it painted a picture too brutal to ignore. For once, justice didn't belong to them. It belonged to her. And when the verdict came down, their careers crumbled in the same halls where they thought their badges made them untouchable. But victory didn't feel like triumph. Elaine knew her case was rare, that countless others who looked like her had not lived to tell their story. She became a symbol not because she wanted to, but because she had no choice. Her survival exposed a truth many wanted to forget, that even those who uphold the law are not safe from the prejudice built into it. In interviews, she spoke not about revenge, but about change, about the lives cut short without cameras, without witnesses, without second chances. She asked the question no one could answer. If a judge in her robe could be mistaken for a threat, what chance does an ordinary black man or woman have on the street? Her story shook a city, but it wasn't just her story. It was a mirror, reflecting a system still bleeding from its own injustice. So now, the question isn't whether Elaine Carter found justice. The question is, when will justice finally belong to everyone? Disclaimer: the stories shared on this channel are completely fictional and created for entertainment purposes only. We believe in equality, fairness, and a just society where everyone enjoys the same rights. Our goal is to present thought-provoking stories that encourage positive reflection and change. Any resemblance to real people, events, or organizations is purely coincidental. These stories are not based on actual individuals or incidents and carry no political or religious intentions.